Let's go up to DC. Our guy, Chris Russell. Not many guys that I like better than him from the Team 980 up there in the nation's capital. What's up, my friend? How are you?
Look at you. Look at you. I hope you can hear me, right? You can hear me, right?
We're good.
Okay. All right, good. Sorry, I'm running a bit late. Traffic was, as usual, just a mess getting here. You are, I mean, the man. I have never seen a more dapper broadcaster in my life, and a damn good one at that, and a
Thank you,
really
sir.
good guy, but dapper to the nines. I mean, if I looked like you, Jay, I would have no problems, and instead I've got a world full of problems. Look at
These are
those shoes.
the bad boys right here. The blue
Woo!
and got to mix. Yeah, the Ric
The-
Flair
the-
style.
I was going to say, those look like you stole them right off of Ric Flair's feet.
And you know what's funny is Ric Flair actually lives in the building right next to Emily here. So there's
No
a good
kidding.
chance as I walk to lunch that I might see Ric Flair a little
Attaboy.
bit later on today.
A nature boy.
Woo!
Woo!
And for those who don't know, and I don't know if I've ever told you this, somebody reached out to me one time and they were like, hey, I need somebody in Tampa that can help establish Ric Flair's podcast room. So somehow somebody gave them my name and I went to Ric Flair's apartment. And I went in there and I walked in and he's watching like old country western, spaghetti western movies and sitting there eating his dinner. And he's like, yeah, just, do whatever you want. And he tried to give me like $100 for helping set up his podcast room. I'm like, I'm not taking any money from you. And we like almost got into it. I was like, I'm not taking money from you, Rick. Like you helped like my life, my childhood. Like you're one of my favorite wrestlers of all time.
Oh,
and he
that's
just
great.
he got so mad. And then I went away. And then the next time I saw him, I was at the Buccaneers game and he was 3 sheets to the wind, brother. And our buddy that was with him, Joe Gomez, was like, it's Jay, the podcast guy. He goes, the podcast guy. And I was like,
Podcast guy.
If I'm known as the podcast guy to Ric Flair,
Yeah.
I'm doing pretty good.
So I'll tell you a quick Ric Flair story.
Yeah.
I ran into him probably 4 times during WrestleMania weekend last year in Philadelphia, right?
Whoa.
He was... You want to talk about 3 sheets to the wind? Several times. And then the last time in the hotel, the WWE hotel, right? Because I had some access and whatever, and we were hanging out with some of the wrestlers and whatever. I mean, Rick's got to slow down a little bit. Rick's got to, he had a near-death experience. We can't lose the Nature Boy with everything and everyone that we've lost and all the tragedies and stuff that we deal with in life. We can't lose the Nature Boy, man. But
I know.
He's still enjoying life. I can tell you that much.
Listen, he goes to like bars and restaurants down here and orders from my friend's Italian restaurant and has the food shipped to other restaurants. So he'll eat like a pot of meatballs at somebody else's restaurant, but he tips everybody. He tips them well. So like the manager's not going to tell him no.
Right.
Did you guys, I didn't mention this last time I was on or you were on with me, or maybe I was on with you. Yeah, it was when I was on with you. Trick Williams was on the same show as I was, wasn't I?
That is correct.
That trick.
That is correct. I mean, you took main billing. Trick, we just kind of backed off and said, no. We got to have Jay on. He's much, no offense, he's much more important to you. He did not lose the NXT Heavyweight Championship like you did, Trick. So I'm going to turn the trick on you and put Jay ahead of you. So you were in the leadoff spot. Trick was just like in the 3-hole.
I appreciate that. Now, if Obafemi came on, the guy that took the title from him, then we'd have a different conversation, and I am definitely understanding of that. I have this thing, Chris, where he's huge. I have this thing where I don't know what it was, even though I've been a diehard sports fan my entire time, but I have this, like, I don't know if it's like part of me being an empath, but I love seeing my friends and my colleagues enjoying the journey of sports, especially fan bases that have gone through turmoil for decades. And I was living vicariously through you and all of your compatriots up there watching Jayden Daniels and the Commanders, of course, after the Buccaneers game, go into Detroit and win that game with the Lions. I actually picked them to pull off the upset because I didn't really trust what I saw from Jalen Hurts. Let's talk about that Detroit game first before we get into that. To be able to watch them do it again, Chris, it's one thing to watch them do it against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but to watch them go into the number 1 seed, the Detroit Lions, heavily favored. A lot of people picked them to go to the Super Bowl and win that game. What was it like watching that?
Well, being at Ford Field, and I don't know when the last time you were there, if you've ever been there.
I haven't.
Okay. So I covered the Super Bowl back 20 years ago there, and I've been to several regular season games when the Lions were really, really bad. And I thought it would be an absolute hornet's nest and the undoing of Jayden Daniels and the offensive line in his rookie week. Especially, remember, Jay, you played late Sunday night, you win in Tampa, which I know is not good for your audience. Then you come back and you're playing 6 nights later indoors against the 1 seed who's, fresh and ready to go. And the one chance you had was, hey, maybe the oil wouldn't be running through the engine because of the bye week that Detroit had, right? Maybe they'd be a little rusty. And I don't know if that played itself out exactly in my mind how I thought it would, but it did translate, I think, maybe to some degree to the turnovers. So you capitalize on really 4 legitimate turnovers, 5 total. And even though they were down 7-0, and even though they could have lost that game easily at times, to go in there and do what they did was just out of this world. Now, listen, with all due respect, beating Tampa was something I didn't think they would do. I thought they would lose a close game. But people around here, maybe a lot of fans, expected them to do that. So it didn't have the same feel. Right. It was good. It was a good feeling, but it didn't have the same feel as kicking the crap out of the Detroit Lions. And then, oh, bleep, we are 8 days away or 7 days away or whatever days away from playing in an NFC championship game against the team we just beat a couple of weeks ago. So I think what happened was maybe there was a little bit of a false sense of security, if that makes sense, right? In beating Detroit by 14, and then going to Philadelphia and forgetting that you had to play a really, really good game against Philadelphia. And in no way, shape, or form did they turn the ball over 4 times. They didn't play well defensively. They didn't do enough things on special teams, including a critical fumble that I think really spin the game around. And they just didn't do enough things right that they had done for the most part against Tampa and Detroit.
Yeah, they played flawless. And I think when you look at the first couple of weeks, it comes down to those fine margins. And the guy that made the least mistakes the first week of the playoffs was the youngest guy there, the rookie quarterback. Yep. And just an incredible year. How would you surmise the overall season, regular season, postseason of one Jayden Daniels?
I mean, it's the best rookie season ever, and I don't think there's much debate on that. I mean, maybe you want to throw out, just for sake of recent comparison, C.J. Stroud, but I think it was better. Maybe you want to throw out Marino in, 83? That's a long time ago. Marino did not have the legs that Jayden Daniels had, and that's the interesting thing for me is that Jayden won 2 playoff games, or the Commanders won 2 playoff games. Jayden was obviously a big part of it. And then played in a third without his legs being a dominant factor. Now, they were always a threat. And, Cansey found out that on that 3rd and 2 at the 19, late in that playoff game, right, how good his legs are. And the Eagles found that out on one drive on a little, sharp turn, 10-yard touchdown run in the third quarter that kind of sort of got the Commanders back into it on Sunday. But outside of that, he wasn't dominant or really explosive with his legs in the playoffs, but he was with his arm for the most part. And that's the thing that I think continues to strike me. And everybody said this coming out of LSU winning the Heisman. He's a thrower first and a runner second. And they were absolutely correct on that. Now, there were times that he was a runner first and a thrower second. I want him to be what he has been and what he was for the most part in these here playoffs. Thrower first, runner second. The other thing that I didn't know as much about him is how tireless of a worker he is. I mean, you work your ass off. I used to work my ass off. I don't want to say I've gone into cruise control, Jay, but I mean, maybe the 65 mile an hour cruise control equivalent. Later in my life, Jayden Daniels shows up. I think I told you this the last time, 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning, every morning. He's there. He beats like coaches He beats coaches sometimes to the facility, and it's translated and it's rubbed off to other teammates. Not all, but translated and rubbed off to other teammates. For a kid to have that kind of poise, that kind of work ethic, that kind of maturity. And then after the game on Sunday night, he cursed. For the first time that I remember him cursing in any press conference, he was pissed. And he was not that much happier yesterday when he met with the media again. A little more calmer, but to me, we haven't seen that kind of like I don't know if would you call it a killer instinct or a fire, a brimstone and fire, kind of thing. So maybe that's the next evolution, is that Jayden goes from being cool as a cucumber to not a hothead, but somebody who visibly shows, hey man, I want this way more than you. I know he does, but for the first time, he kind of let the public in on that Sunday night.
I like that. He's going to go from being the Rock to like Kane, the Hellfire
Brimstone.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, you see,
that's
you're
exactly
like
who I was thinking about when I like said, yes, when I said that.
Somebody said something the other day about something with risk. Oh, with the Liam Coen situation. They were like, Liam Coen, you know what Liam Coen reminded me of? And before the person said it, I'm like, you're going to say something about wrestling. And the person was like, when Hulk Hogan and Bash at the Beach joined the NWO. And I go, I smile every single time. There's other people out there that attribute every little nuance that happens in life, but in sports, to something that happened in wrestling. It's the Montreal screw job. It's this, it's that.
Yeah, it's funny. I wasn't thinking Liam Coen and Hulk Hogan, going Hollywood and at the Bash at the Beach, but I was kind of thinking, who he like sort of weirdly looks like that I thought of when I saw that video yesterday. And I have no idea why I did this, but Jack Swagger. You remember him? Oh, my
God. Yes, you are so right.
Right? I mean, I don't know why I thought.
The people. Oh, my God.
I don't know why I thought that, but I thought that.
No, you're not wrong. I'm watching that press conference yesterday, and I'm just like, there is a high school volleyball team missing an assistant coach. What is going on? What is your take on that? I'd love to hear other people's, because obviously we've been ad nauseum talking about this Liam Coen situation. From what you know and just following the sport, what do you make of the whole Liam Coen thing?
So, I mean, obviously it was a messy departure, but I think, what happens is he tries to do the right thing and says, I'm not going to work with Trent Baalke, right? I'm just going to go back where I'm comfortable. Baker, Todd Bowles, Tampa Bay, I've got it good there, get a raise, what have you. And then all of a sudden they do the unexpected, because it literally took not only other coaches turning them down, but then Liam Coen, the guy they wanted, to walk away and say, nah, dog, that's not for me. And I can't blame him for that, right? I mean, like, I still can't figure out how Ben Johnson wants to work with the Chicago GM, Ryan Tolles, yeah. I thought he would have his own guy, quite honestly. So Liam Cohen's like, I ain't working with this clown. Get lost. I'm not putting maybe the one chance I've got. So I understood. It looked messy. You got to answer your phone, brother. You can't ghost. I understood, though, him going back to Jacksonville when they did finally the unthinkable. And you tell me, everything I've heard about Liam Coen, and I know Sean McVay, fairly well. We don't talk as much as we used to. Sean always had a very high opinion of him. And I know he bounced back and forth between Kentucky and the Rams and then to the Bucs, right? And I would say this: everything that I've always heard about Liam Coen, he's going to be a stud. Now, if he's got kind of a goofy personality, sometimes that works, and sometimes that rubs a lot of people the wrong way. So he's got to straddle that fence.
Yeah, and I wonder too, because I did hear some stuff, not in the beginning or the middle of the season, but towards the end of the season, about like maybe, I don't want to say rubbing people in the wrong way. Maybe that's a little bit too strong, but especially after he left, there's some people like, not really. Your message can't be shaky at all, right? That's the one thing, and you know this with Todd Bowles. You may think Todd Bowles is a bad coach. You may think he's a horrible game manager. But Chris, that guy is as steady Eddie as they come. He is not a good man. He is a great man. He's respected around the National Football League. And again, this team went through 2 straight 4-game losing streaks in 23 and 24. Not a peep of dissension, not a peep of anybody jumping off the ship. And you know as well as anybody, that doesn't, you see that in every sport, right? You see somebody in the NHL, 4-game losing streak, something going on. MLB, it doesn't take much.
Well, let me give you an example. I mean, Dan Quinn is not stoic quite like Todd Bowles is, or at least that's my perception. But Dan Quinn has some of those quirks and some of those things about his leadership style and his personality, like here, and I'm not sure what the buzzword has been in Tampa. I don't pay close enough attention to everything, but culture, right? Everybody talks about culture. Well, here, I don't know if Dan Quinn ever used the word culture, but you know what he used? Brotherhood. And I didn't quite get it at that time because I thought, well, all right, that sounds hokey. I mean, I've heard the culture thing, but brotherhood, right? But then I started to think, I'm 30 years ago, I was initiated into a national fraternity, right? Phi Sigma Kappa. And one of our cardinal principles, one of the 3 things that we are supposed to stand for, is brotherhood, right? And I started thinking, oh, wait a second. I did sacrifice and do a lot of things for my guys, right? For the guys that were with me and on that journey. And that was the whole point that Dan Quinn was trying to get across. And much like, again, Todd Bowles, when things started to go sideways and they lost 3 in a row to Dallas and Philly on a Thursday night and Pittsburgh, right? Everybody just stayed super duper focused. Everybody stayed on ship. No squeaky wheels or anything like that. And then they come out and just destroy a Tennessee team. Granted, Tennessee was not good, but their defense was playing really good. And if you remember, they were off of an upset win in Houston the week before. And they destroyed them, and they never lost again until Sunday. So, these things, these leadership, these character things, these brotherhood, the culture, staying on the ship, all that stuff, like that means something still to people, even at the highest level.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think it can be hokey. But if you have guys that have been around the game, right? Dan Quinn and Todd Bowles, they're football lifers. So I understand that there's guys out there that are young, they're upstarts, they're usually on the offensive side of the ball. I understand everybody's looking for the next Sean McVay and the next Kyle Shanahan. But let's not forget there's other guys that have tried to go down that route, those young offensive play callers. And then you're looking to them when things go awry, and you realize that they're not built for this. Their character is not strong enough to be able to weather the storm. And that's something that I don't think Dan Quinn got enough credit in Atlanta for that. And Todd Bowles certainly doesn't get enough credit for that here. Before I let you go, I want to ask you about the Super Bowl. Who's who do you think's going to win? Who do you got? And also Saquon Barkley. I brought him up yesterday on the program because I don't know if we've ever seen a legacy defining performance from a non-quarterback like we've seen this year with Saquon Barkley. He could have broke Dickerson's record if they let him. The team, I feel like somehow people just they didn't give them credit because of what happened last year. It seems like, oh yeah, the Eagles are good. They're in the Super Bowl. It's just weird because they got a crap ton of talent. I mean, you guys see them twice a year, but just your take on the Eagles and their chance to dethrone the Chiefs.
All right. I'm not on a hard out here, am I?
No, you're fine.
Okay. Let me give you this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Saquon Barkley, when he was coming out of Penn State, my favorite player in the draft, I begged and pleaded for the Giants to take him at number 2. And everyone told me I was crazy when the Jets moved up from 6 to 3 with Indianapolis and drafted Sam Darnold, a pick behind, right? Oh, they're going to regret that. First of all, they never regretted it for 1 second. Secondly, they still managed to bleep it up when he became a free agent, right? And I understood once you made the mistake, and it was a mistake to pay Daniel Jones what he obviously got, that, you have to kind of make some tough choices, right? And anytime you pay a quarterback, which is why everybody talks about the window that the Commanders are currently in, right? That you can't keep everybody. So I sort of understood the Giants getting rid of him. What the problem was we're going to let him go as a free agent to a team that we've got to go not only twice against, but that we have to compete theoretically in the division for 17 games. Remember, he has an impact in 15 other games as well as the 2 against you. So, that was one thing. Saquon, I love. I didn't love him on Sunday from a Commander's perspective. The touchdown that he broke off on the first play from scrimmage was so like what I feared all week, which was, hey, man, you cannot allow a 5-yard run. Give it up. Give up a 5-yard run. Give up a 6-yard run. You can't allow a 5 or a 6 to turn into a 60. And immediately they threw up all over themselves. They had guys falling down like dominoes. They had guys missing tackles. They had guys taking the wrong angle and the wrong shoulder and all of that. And immediately you went, oh God, oh no.
Yeah.
And yet still somehow the Commanders found themselves, even with Barkley scoring on and dealing with a whatever he was dealing with his leg, and he scored the next time he touched the ball on a short touchdown around right end. You still, like, after that, he wasn't a huge factor in the game, but he was such a big factor early that he, of course, was a huge factor in the game. So I'll leave it at that. I mean, Philadelphia and Howie Roseman, and I know a couple of those guys under Howie that I worked with here in Washington. And, I talked to one of them earlier in the year, and they were like, man, we thought he was good. We miscalculated. I said, what do you mean miscalculated? He goes, he's bleeping amazing. Like, not good. Not what we thought we were getting. He's that much better than we thought we were getting. And that's from a top official under Howie Roseman, okay? So you take that for what it is. Now, as far as the Super Bowl, if Philadelphia is healthy, and they are banged up, Gainwell's banged up, Barkley's banged up, Landon Dickerson's banged up, Cam Jurgens is banged up, Quinyon Mitchell seems to be fine. Jalen Hurts seems to be fine. But, if they're already missing Nakobe Dean. If they are healthy and they are right and they don't throw up all over themselves, I think they beat Kansas City. As great as Andy Reid is, as great as Patrick Mahomes is, as great as Spagnuolo is, as great as Chris Jones is, I just think they have more talent and more depth and better in more phases. That being said, man, if Jalen Hurts decides, I'm going to dribble down my chin and I'm going to, play a game that is half of what we saw on Sunday at Lincoln Financial, then obviously Kansas City is going to win that game. Or if Patrick somehow elevates again to being Superman, right? But I don't know what to expect, because Kelsey, I thought, was, breaking out, that he really didn't do that much last Sunday. So I think Kansas City needs a big game out of him. Can you get that done against C.J. Gardner-Johnson and that Eagles secondary? I don't know. I have to see it first, as good as Kelsey is. I have to see it. And I also know this. I will just say this. If the game comes down to a place-kicking situation, whether throughout the game, extra points, field goal, whatever, I would take Kansas City, and I would lean towards Kansas City because I trust Harrison Butker. I don't trust Jake Elliott anymore.
Which is crazy, because I thought early this year or late last year, I thought he was the best kicker in the game. Jake Elliott.
Well, look at how quickly it falls apart, not only for Elliott, but also in Baltimore. Yeah. I mean, it in some ways, Jay, and you'll know this because you're a big baseball guy, right? Remember when a second baseman, this might have been a little bit before your time, Steve Sachs for the Dodgers got the yips, right? And he couldn't throw.
Chuck Knobloch had the same thing.
Mackie Sasser, exactly. Rick Ankiel, remember when he went through with the St. Louis, and all of a sudden, like, guys just go through this 1 year period, 1.5, and maybe they never get out of it. I don't know. But if the game comes down to kicking, and it doesn't have to necessarily just be on the final play or the final series or in the final minute, it could be throughout the game on extra points or whatever, or just decisions that are made, I think Kansas City has a strong advantage in that area.
Yeah, you got that right, because you listen, it could be a mixed extra point early on in the game, and then they have to go for 2, and they're not able to come up with it. I'm with you. I find it hard to be able to pick against Kansas City. I don't know what it is. And I look at a couple of years ago, Jalen Hurts played as good of a game as he's going to play. He fumbled one time. Nick Bolton picked it up, and that was really the difference in the game, 38-35. It's definitely one of those things where, like, let's say Kansas City wins again, Chris. Then what does Philadelphia say? Failure of a year? Because I don't know if you can't call this year a failure, but one team is going to be happy and everybody else is going to be pissed.
I mean, I think that's how their dopey fans would grade it, right? Nothing less than a Super Bowl championship. But you and I know, listen, man, there's no disrespect or no insult in losing to what would be then the 3-time defending and 4-time, had a 6-year Super Bowl champions. And oh yeah, that guy that you guys hated, the guy that you guys forced out, the guy that you guys thought was a village idiot in Andy Reid. And that would be some sweet chin music. I'll leave it at that to the Philadelphia fan base.
They call him the Heartbreak Kid up there in D.C. for the team. Chris Russell. Chris, I appreciate you, brother. Enjoy the Royal Rumble this weekend. I'm actually going to be here at Amalie Arena. One of my coworkers, Ed Encina. Do you know Ed Encina? Eddie Encina?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so Eddie spent a lot of time in Baltimore, kind of in that area. So Eddie's a big wrestling fan too. So he sits 2 seats down from me. I'm actually going to broach the topic tonight at the game. Like, hey, the Royal Rumble starts at 6 on Saturday. We got to be here anyway. Let's just sit next to each other so we can watch it.
I mean,
it makes it easy for everybody.
So what do you got? The Lightning at 7? Is that what the deal
Lightning
is? Right,
at 7, and the start time for the Royal Rumble is at 6.
It's
so
6.
All right, quick before you leave, give it your pick. Give me your pick. Who's going to win the Royal Rumble?
Somehow, some way, I still feel like John Cena's gotta be involved big time in this, right? So, but that's so hokey because we know he shouldn't be. Oh God. I mean, it looked. I'm gonna just say Drew McIntyre.
Oh, I like that.
I'm gonna say Drew McIntyre, just because. He's obviously been involved with Cody Rhodes and everything, right? He's obviously a main event star. But if you think about it, the storyline has been for a year and a half, 2 years now, he's been basically kicked in the onions, right? And denied and denied and denied. Now he gets his redemption. And on the road to wrestling. Now, I don't know how they pull it off because, how they left Raw last night with CM Punk and Cody Rhodes in the ring. That certainly is another setup, right? You would think maybe see it. I don't know, man. This is why I don't gamble much, because I can't figure out everything, the solution to everything.
I start pairing him off. I think it'll be Cody Rhodes and John Cena, possibly at WrestleMania. I think somehow, some way, I don't know if they give it to John Cena at the Rumble because he's supposed to be part of Elimination Chamber and all these different things. And I don't know if he would be involved in those other pay-per-views leading up to WrestleMania if he wins the Royal Rumble. So that's why I kind of bring him out. I think Seth and CM Punk will they'll pair off because that'll be the WrestleMania match. I think all roads lead to Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, maybe 3, or there's going to be a 3-way match at some point. It's going to be Cody, Roman, and Cena. Or it's going to be Seth,
what about The Rock
and CM Punk, or The Rock? Don't be surprised. Or I think The Rock could possibly rock Roman Reigns, and Rock helps Drew McIntyre win the Royal Rumble. And also, don't be surprised if Brock Lesnar comes back in here too. I think Brock Lesnar and Gunther has, kind of something that's permeating on the outside. So
I like
that is why you're here on the JayRecher podcast. Chris Russell, the one and only, again, the Heartbreak Kid. I think that's a great nickname.
Nobody calls me a sexy boy, though. I will just say that. Say that. Thank you, my friend.
980 from up there in DC. Appreciate it, man. Have a good show today, man. Talk soon.
You got it. Thanks, Jay.
All right, buddy.